Okay, good morning. Happy Sunday. Thanks for being here with us, or with me. Anyway, I'm in a different setup. I'm still kind of transitioning, so one of the reasons why I'm late. I'm going to go through things kind of quickly today because I'm still getting things together. But I know we needed to look at some things on the monthly, so let's do that. But first, of course, we got to talk about economic data. Thankfully, we don't have anything until Thursday. But then Thursday morning, we have CPI and jobless claims at the same time. So be aware of that for Thursday. Could get really volatile. And then on Friday, we have PPI and Michigan consumer sentiment. So Thursday and Friday could be really volatile days. Thursday is usually my favorite day to trade, but we'll have to see if we have a nice trend day after that data. So let us get into these charts. All right, so we're going to look at them on the monthly, weekly, and daily, of course. Looking at VIX, VIX has triggered the 212 up on the month. However, it's pretty much hit its target, but it does still have, we know it has plenty of room to go because it has been beat down. Remember that we drew this line last week and we said it needed to break above. It did break above, but we still need it to hold because we are still in a longer term downtrend. Okay, so looking at it on its daily, it's broken. Remember the last few times, or a couple times that it's broken above this, it hasn't held. It rejected and then it came back and closed above. So on the daily, we're looking for our next target to be about 1864, which will be the 200 on the day. If it breaks above that, we may really see some red in the market. Now remember that July is seasonally bullish and we're done with July. So August already started out pretty heavy with the bears stepping in. So we just want to see if they continue. A lot of the charts you're going to see are going to look pretty bearish. So we'll have to just see. We also did move a lot, so we might even have an inside week. So looking at the dollar is an inside month, not really doing much at the moment. Rejected this 50 that it finally broke above, so it broke below, came back up, retested, and rejected, and we now have a shooter even though it's green. So keeping that in mind, and then also wondering if this will be a true rejection or if it has finally found some support, because we see right here this 8 has crossed this 20. If it can push to the upside, then it will cross more moving averages, which will be bullish. But still, we know the ultimate resistance is going to be right here at this 103.20. Looking at the NASDAQ, I'm not sure why this line is here. So we have an inside month that is red so far, first week into the month, and we're already somewhat close to triggering to the downside. And you'll see that when we take a look at the sectors really quickly, a lot of them are looking like they're triggering to the downside. And we know that we kind of need some corrective activity. One thing I am going to point out is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You do have a PMG here in a month. Not to say that NASDAQ is going to die that much, but again, we always are aware of these things. So you see that there. Most of these did this outside week here. So you just want to see, and remember, that's the start of a new broadening formation. You just want to see if this is going to broaden to the downside. Are we going to get a 3-2 down and come for this target? That would be my next target, that 14,920. We also did move a lot. So because this is a new broadening formation, we could have an inside week before it decides if it really wants to fall. Okay, and then looking at it on a daily, remember again, this 200, as long as we're above it and they're mostly pointing up, we're going to stay large picture bullish. However, do notice we have somewhat of an M. These EMAs are starting to cross down. So if this is a 3-2 down on the day, it will trigger the 3-2 down on the week. You do have a gap here to fill, 15,134 to come down to. And then my next target would be that 14,974. So, I mean, that looks pretty bearish. It could also 3-1-2 back up to the upside. We do have a gap here at 15,648 that we could fill if we want to do some bullish activity if the bulls step back in. I, however, think that the bulls are a little tired. You will also notice that although we haven't completely uncoupled yet, most of the time frame continuity is going to be red. The way you can know it when it flips is to look at the quarter. 15,191. If NASDAQ pushes below that, then it's going to flip the entire time frame continuity to the downside. To red. Looking at the Dow, we had a TTO'd and came back in. So it's a possible outside month if it breaks below this 346.76. On the week, it's looking just like NASDAQ. You had that outside week, so we can either 3-2 down to continue and broaden, or we can 3 inside week and decide what it wants to do from there. Also still above its 200, and the EMAs are starting to turn. You have your M here. So all of these are pretty much bearish signs. But again, this is sitting at this support where it could 3-1-2 up if it wanted to, or retest or something like that. But honestly, I think this is more like a shoulder, head, shoulder area. So it may shoulder right here and then drop some more. Everything is looking pretty much bearish though. How it started August, but we do know some things do have room to run. IWM is not really doing too much on the month here. It's still inside month and not close to taking anything out. But again, like everything else, you have this 3. So it can 3-2 down, or we may just have an inside week. And we do have some room to the downside and to the upside. Looking at it on the day though, you have your shoulder, head, shoulder. So we're in the shoulder area here. And if this breaks down, it can definitely come down here. And I would be looking for about 190 as a strong support. We're still above this 200 though. So again, we're going to be long-term bullish until we see some, not long-term, large picture bullish until we see some things break below this. And then we can start putting on our bear hats and saying that we're mostly bearish. But we will still take advantage of these bear moves to the downside when we see things like that. Remember, we've been saying the bulls have been buying the dip. It may have switched to the bears shorting the rip. So something we just want to pay attention to. But we're not going to stick with that until we break below this 200 and stay below it. That is completely bearish, at least on the day. All right. Again, these EMAs are also starting to turn down. So, that's the signs that we are looking for, that the market is starting to turn to the bearish side, especially after these type of runs. All right. And we do have PMGs here on the monthly time frames where, we've gone up for 5 straight months. For the most part, the bulls have been buying the dip. So it may be time for the bears to start shorting, at least, maybe down to one of these EMAs, or even down to the 200, which would be the strongest support. So inside month for the Qs, not quite triggering it to the downside, but close to. Same thing with that 3. You don't quite have, here on the actual weekly, you have a shoulder, a head, and this could be the shoulder area. So if it really drops below 357, it can really start to turn down. Looking at it on the daily, we have that M, or you can call that a head, shoulder type of area. And the 3 with the EMAs turning down. Y'all see it's kind of a rolling theme here. Inside month, not quite triggering it yet, but close to. Plenty of room to take out because we've been green for months straight. Looking at it on the weekly, a SPY didn't outside week. It just did the 2 up, 2 down and hit its target. So there's not an actionable signal on the weekly here. Like with the Qs, a 3-2, you can take that as an actionable signal. It's more of a continuation actually, because the 3, you catch that, and the 2 is the continuation of that 3. So with SPY, you don't really have an actionable signal here. On the daily though, if it did 3-2 down, you can target at least this gap we have here at 443, which we also know 443 was a very, very strong resistance. And so that's the gap that we would first look for. And then, we do have room to the downside. Of course, remember we are still above this 200, so we will keep that in mind. However, these EMAs are turning to the downside. You got your shoulder, your head, your shoulder. This is the shoulder area. So if it drops below that, that's that first target at 443. 437-ish is 438 is probably going to be your next target. And then this 432. I would say 432 is going to be a good target where it may recover from. But then, you know, again, if we still keep going to the downside, we do have gaps down here that we can target. But for me, I'm not looking at these until these have really turned. If you look back, a couple of times it turned, but this 8 has not crossed this 20 since it crossed above. So that may be significant. And I want y'all to keep that in mind. All right, this is the first time this 8 is crossing that 20. So if this decides to come down, you know, we fill the gap, we chop here in this shoulder. This could be even larger because this entire one could be the head. This entire area could be the shoulder. So shoulder, head, and then we chop here, we could really start coming down, especially if these turn, and then if that 8 starts crossing below this 50, that's also a bearish move. So keep that in mind. We are looking like we are turning a bit on the charts, and that's what we wanted to see before we said we were going to do become bearish. So Apple, it's interesting because after all the earnings, we knew that Apple had hit all-time highs. Microsoft hit all-time highs. Microsoft basically hit its all-time highs, triple topped, and kind of reversed. Was looking to see if Apple and Amazon would save the market. Amazon did really well, but Apple just did not. So Apple has triggered the 2 up, 2 down on the monthly. We know that it hit the top of our Barton formation. It hit all-time highs. So this shouldn't really be too much of a surprise. So the target for that is going to be 177. Also keep in mind, we do have, again, a PMG on the monthly. Not to say it's going to get all the way back to 143.85, but we can expect some corrective activity to come down. I mean, everything on the charts is kind of telling us that. There's no actionable signal here. I mean, for this to rev strat, it would have to boom back above 197. That would be a lot the way this candle is looking. So on the daily, it's a little bit different than the rest of them in the sense that because of the earnings, it gapped down. And then you have, it ended like so bearish, basically. EMA is starting to turn. So if anything, my upside target, if it's going to go and have some corrective activity to the upside, it would be that 191. But it ended very bearish, so it may even gap down more on a Monday. And you know, again, like we said, we triggered the monthly, so 177 is going to be my first target on that monthly, which is about here, right at this 50. And then you got gaps here. You got that 175.87. There's a gap all the way down here at 167.40, and that is the 200. So that would be like my final support. If it breaks past there, good night. Yeah. And then we'll start looking at other targets. But for now, this gap will be my first target for this Apple downtrend. And then, of course, you know, you can look at this like this is a shoulder. This is possibly a head. So because it did this gap down, it may want to iron out this area first before it drops, or it could just continue the way it was booming up and may, you know, stairs up, elevator down. So that's how Apple is looking. And again, Microsoft kind of is doing the same thing. Hit its all-time highs after earnings. It's just been bearish. It's sitting right at the monthly trigger. So, you know, if this also goes, the entire market's going to go. This goes, if VIX goes to the upside, we can expect that the market is going to have some corrective activity. Now, again, first half of the year, we were green. Not saying that the second half of the year, we're going to take all of that back, but to even take half of that back would just be like a 50% retracement of that move, and we can still keep going if we're going to stay bullish. So, you know, just play these charts, know that, we can have corrective activity. We can violently bounce back to the upside, but we can also have an elevator down because we do have PMGs on these monthlies, where we're just green, green, green. So, Tesla, I'll get to Tesla in a second because that is on my list. Let's look at these sectors really quickly. All right, so XLY, you have it triggered the monthly and then came back in. So watching to see if, the market is red. If it triggers that monthly again and goes back down, then, there you go. However, we did enter and end with a hammer somewhat on the week, even though it's a red. So this could also be a head. You got a fresh TTO right here. Took these folks out. And so it may have some corrective activity. So watch XLY for that. You see here, the EMAs are tight, so it would need to break below. If it breaks below, these EMAs should turn down. That would give you the sign that it's going to go. XLK, your technology is about to trigger the monthly. So keep your favorite technology stock on your watch list. Again, they're looking like this. You got your head, you got your shoulder, you got your head. You may shoulder some, but they're very close to triggering their monthlies down early in the month. Now, that's something to keep in mind. Early in the month is to giving back most of last month's gains already. So XLF Financial so far inside month, so it's not really doing much. Barely triggered the week down last week. And then you have a shooter on the day. All right, but we're in between these EMAs. You kind of got a head here too as well. A lot of these are looking like these heads where we may shoulder this week. Like we could possibly, because we're on a day here, we could possibly shoulder all the way to Thursday and Friday. And that could be the violent push down that we may need. So, yeah, I'm mostly short-term bearish for the week, just from what I'm seeing. But again, I'm always ready. XLC, again, these are all looking the same. You got this straight up, and it's time to come down. So inside month yet has not triggered, but it could trigger and at least give back half of this for some type of corrective activity. However, if you look like how it went down last time, it was really an elevator. So this could elevator, or it could just correct a little bit and go. It's not really ready to trigger anything yet. You do have an inside week, so XLC is still looking okay. XLE hasn't really done much yet. It's sitting at a hard resistance. So if you look at your favorite energy oil stock like ZOM, for instance, you'll see that it's had a hard time breaking that resistance for the last 1, 2, 3, 4 times it's tried it. So we were either look to see if this is going to fade again, or if it's actually going to break above and move on to the upside. I mean, if you look at it, technically it's had higher lows, so it's looking more bullish than it is bearish. No actionable signal there, and we are still above our 200 here on the day. XLU, your favorite utility stock, has probably done this rev strat and hit its target. All right, and then here on the monthly, you got a big old shoulder head. We're in the shoulder area. All right, so this has actually reversed. Last month we were looking at it for this 2-1-2 to see if it would kind of break up, but it's looking more bearish, like this wedge, like it's about to break this wedge down, bear flag down. So watch your favorite utility stock. It's probably sitting at a strong support here, but if it breaks down, it's running out of this range. That's what it is. This strong support breaking that down could really break this down. Utilities, I'm sorry, industrials, I meant to say, are close to triggering their outside months. This is one of my favorite sectors. You'll see it on the weekly list shortly. And then looking at it on the week, we had that 3 like everything else. So looking to see if it does not 3-1, if it does a 3-2 and expands that broader information to the downside, then we may do finish the outside month for industrials. XLV healthcare inside month, not doing anything. It's stuck in this entire range here. It's really not doing much. So, you know, that's not a good chart to me, honestly. XLP is kind of similar. It's stuck in this range. You know, you'll have some decent moves, but for the most part, consumer staples is trading inside of a range. It's kind of similar. Reminds me of how the Dow was moving for the longest. XLRE, your favorite real estate stock, may have triggered the 2 up, 2 down on the monthly, so it does have some room to go. Ooh, excuse me. You got the no actionable signal here on the week, but it has somewhat broken this support, so that could send it further to the downside. And you see that with XLRE, it rejected the 200 and came on down. So XLB is your materials inside month, not doing much, but red, kind of looking more like the last couple. Still trading in this range. We had a TTO here and it came back out, so not much going on there. XOP, oil and gas, is kind of similar to XLE, where it looks like it's trying to break out to the upside. For the most part, you do have full time frame continuity that's green. So if it can break out of this, it looks like it's trying to, you know, to look at it like this. Boom. So it's in this kind of wedge that is trying to break out. If it can break above that, then, you know, we may be able to move to the upside. XRT retail, not really doing much on the monthly or the week, except it did reject here, which it has done the last few times. The last few times it's rejected, it's fell pretty hard. And even last time when it did it, the EMAs had crossed above the 200 and then crossed right back down. So interesting to see if that happens again, because look, they've all crossed the 200, but it rejected. So it could definitely still come right on back down, or it may actually move to the upside this time. Jets. So the airplane, I guess, you know, school's back in, so transportation is done. We had a hard reversal here. This actually is looks like an evening star on the monthly. So this 2 up, 2 down rejection. Next target would be this 1822. So you also see an airline stock on our weekly list because of that monthly. And Kiki's fish hook here. Her fish hook is like my head. So shoulder, head, we're in the shoulder. If it continues down, then it's going to trigger that monthly. Lithium triggered the monthly, 2 up, 2 down. So 60.53 is going to be that target there. You got the rejection here and a 3. If it 3, 2 down, it will trigger that. Well, it should continue that monthly. Chips are inside month, except for AMD. We'll talk about that shortly. SOXL in particular has not been doing much but rejecting this 2867. It's like a really hard resistance for it, but it's somewhat staying bullish because for the most part they're keeping it afloat. But we have this where we've broken below the 8 and the 20 and then rejected it a couple of times. So really interesting to see what chips do. I have to, of course, keep watch of NVIDIA, AMD, TSM, all of those. Transportation, again, this is like jets. You're going to see that TTO and reversal. So it made 3, 2 down for some corrective activity. I mean, this has a PMG on the week, so this could definitely come all the way down if they are done with transportation for the moment. And you got your head and your shoulder here. We're in the shoulder area, so if it pushes down, it can definitely continue. And then remember, we uncouple on Tuesday, so that can really give us full time frame continuity, especially if it breaks below 248.61. So 248.61. Yeah, we'd have to two down in a month, but we just started the month. We definitely could do that. So keeping that in mind, China is down here doing nothing. It has a good month or a good day or a good week, and then it is still stuck in this long-term downtrend. So the 200 is catching up to it on the weekly, but it's still all pointing down. And y'all see the difference here when we're looking at stuff that's bearish versus bullish, where how it's below the 200, like I always talk about, below the EMAs, they're used as resistance. Those are the type of things we look for when something's in a downtrend versus an uptrend. And you got a whole head right here, and we're in the shoulder area. So this isn't really looking bullish yet. All right, did we have, I think we did have a couple of outside months. You got crowd already has triggered the outside month. So as long as it stays under this 150, 139, 139, 37 is going to be our target. ZS, we were looking to be possibly bullish and break out. And I don't know why these lines are here. And it did not. So it came back in and triggered the 50% rule. So if it continues, as long as it stays under this 150-ish, 136.44 is going to be your next target. And then AMD, which is on our list. Now AMD is a little tricky because, first of all, we have this inside bar, which we know a lot of times after inside bars, we have an outside bar. It doesn't always happen, but a lot of times it happens. You know, look right here, after an inside bar. Right here after inside bar, right here. So you know it definitely happens a lot, even back here. So if it does want to outside, it may make it to this 122.12 target. If the entire market is bearish, though, I don't know what AMD would do to possibly I'm trying to see if when their earnings is. Let me look at the daily. Looking on the daily, yeah, they had the earnings already. That's right. So it's kind of stuck in this range, and yeah, we just have to see what it does. If it does push to the upside, 122. Oh, that's not there. That's here. Yeah, about 122 is going to be the target. But then remember, often if it does not push, that is the area where they will reject it. So if they reject it from here, it can definitely just come right on back down and trigger down to the downside. So keep that in mind. We already looked at the 2-week setups last week. I think that is it, except for the weekly list. Yes, so we talked about XLI. We like XLI because it is possibly triggering the outside month. So we are looking for a possible 3-2 or even a 3-1-2. If it does a 3-1, don't touch it until it does a 3-1-2. But if it does a 3-2, then it can definitely go ahead and finish that outside month. Then you got Roku has done a shooter on the week. So remember we were watching Roku to do the, well, it was on our quarter list up. It hit the target on the quarter. So now it's coming back in and we can possibly catch that to the downside. So if it does this 3-2 up, 2 down reversal, it may not come all the way down to this target at 67.88, but even if it comes down to this 78.70, if it comes down to this 78.70, that could still be a decent play. So Palantir has this evening star on the week and also a possible rev strat. So if this does this, breaks this 18.15, we would be looking for about $16 on Palantir. Then your inside weeks, not as strong because, you know, this could be a mother bar problem, but these are some inside weeks that are red that we could look at. Remember, we were talking about CVX. CVX could go either way, but if XLE is able to push above this resistance here, then you can play CVX to the upside. Otherwise, it may be another rejection. TWLO, you got this long range. However, if it can break it, this 61-ish, then we can look for a possible $10 drop. All right, and then some of our monthly triggers that we've been watching. I've been talking about Tesla a lot in the Discord. It is about that 250, 255 was a really strong area that, hold on, let me take this off. There it is. The really strong area that it was holding, mostly because that's the monthly trigger to the downside. So if this does a 2 up, 2 down, Tesla could come all the way down to 200. All right. Looking at it on the weekly, there's no actionable signal here. But when we were watching it on the daily, and I was posting about it, we were posting about this wedge here. So we were posting about this wedge, and we broke below, retested, and then still rejected. So I am looking now for this to possibly, now we have this channel, this downward channel that we're in. So we would have to look and see what Tesla does, but if it breaks through, it can definitely trigger that monthly to the downside. All right. UAL, remember we were talking about jets. This has, I was looking at the weekly, I'm like, wait a minute. This is not quite an evening star, but we do have, and not quite a gravestone doji, but it's a doji nonetheless, which indicates indecision, but it looks like they chose. So this 2 up, 2 down, possible could come to 47.11. Now remember, when I'm talking about these monthly triggers, these are swings. We just talked about EMA, what in the world? AMD, and which way it could possibly go either direction. And then we also have Oracle. Now Oracle hit an all-time high. And then we have our 2, 1 resting with a almost doji, and then looks like the bears are stepping in for some corrective activity, at least to this 104.84. So maybe a nice $10 drop there. We are still watching HD and COP on the quarter. One thing I do want to mention, COP, it still has somewhat, well, both of these still actually have room, but they have both kind of rejected on the weekly. So you see this 3, it could 3-2 down, or it could 3-1 and have that resting and then continue to the upside. So we're still going to watch it. HD has this, remember how I said if it doesn't finish the outside bar, it may finish the next week. It could still do that and then still keep going up to its quarter target, which was, because it rev strat, yes, this 347.27. So it can definitely still do that. And we still have another month of quarter. So August, September. I can't think right now, but you know what I mean. You still have time if it wants to have some corrective activity and still go. See, if you look at it here, it had that 1 red week and then it boomed. So this may be this 1 red week. It could still boom, or it could correct more and still go back to the upside. But we will still watch it to see. Neither one of these are giving like it's going to come back in and outside or anything like that. So keep those in mind. But that's all I have for you guys today. I hope y'all have a wonderful rest of the day. Trade safe. I'm going to do probably another video about this challenge that I'm starting this week. But I hope everybody has a wonderful, wonderful week.